Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glow Cloud team.
Mike, we can't hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, this is Mike Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and we're here today to help you build your technology career. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect. Maybe you desire to be a cloud engineer. Maybe you want to be a network architect or an enterprise architect or a network engineer. Whatever the case is, we're here to help you. Why do I do this? When I started my career 25 years ago, I listened to everybody who gave me the worst advice possible. I took this certification, this certification, this certification, and not a single employer cared. It was like no matter how much time, effort, or money I spent, no one cared. And then I actually spoke to people in the hiring world, and they told me exactly what they wanted in the perfect network engineer. And I got my first tech job as a senior engineer, skipping all those intro-level careers. And the point is, you can all have any technology career you desire. Your first cloud architect job, your first enterprise architect job, it doesn't matter. You can get it, but you just need the right set of skills and the right set of experiences. And that's why we come here, to help you build your technology career. So it's on your terms. There's no rules. There's no reason to start out at help desk or systems administration and take 10 years to get to your goal. That's ridiculous. Now, if you want to be at help desk, that's fantastic. If you want to be a sysadmin, that's fantastic. But so many people gave me this nonsense that I had to start at the bottom and I had to take one of these jobs and take 5 and 10 years to get to my goal. First job was a senior engineer. 6 months later, I was a lead architect. Within 2 years, I was a principal architect. And all of you can be anything you want. So that's why we're here, so we can guide you, so you can have any career you want to get to your goals and have the life that you want as well. So a little bit about me. I've been in tech now for over 25 years. I'm one of the first Cisco certified internet experts. I started my career as a senior engineer. I've been a principal architect, an enterprise architect, a cloud architect, a business architect, you name it, I've done it. And I've spent over 2 decades helping people get their first tech job, get promoted in tech. It's almost every day where I've got someone who never had a tech background that gets a $100,000 to $200,000 job after the right training. And you can too. So that's why we're here. Ask your questions so we can help you build the best technology career. You know, there's 2 ways you can learn. You can make a whole lot of mistakes, and that's kind of like zigzagging around, wasting your time, effort, or money, or you could do what I did, which is ask people that already made it to the top how they got to the top. And that way, you can learn from their successes instead of the failures of trying and failing along the way. The choice is yours, but I'm here. I want to help you. I want to get you to the top. I want you to have a life that you live. I want you to have the career that you desire and anything that goes along with it and all the good stuff. So that's why I'm here. So ask your questions so we can help you get to your goals. While we wait for your questions, I want to introduce you to Alonzo Coleman. Alonzo is my Chief Marketing Officer. He's a good friend. Alonzo, why don't you say a few words while we wait for questions?
Yeah, also, thank you so much, Mike. Thank you. Everyone, it's a pleasure to just always speak with everyone and help you all get to your career goals and be able to utilize all the tools necessary. And it's not just about the tech at all. It's about your business acumen, your soft skills, emotional intelligence, your brand, and many other things that help round off the entire package that you are as a competent, capable, and in-demand cloud architect. So again, just like Mike mentioned, we're here to answer your questions, get you to cloud architect in the quickest, most succinct, and most detailed way possible. No pit stops here and there on technology and skills that are not relevant to the overall goal of who you want to be. So yeah, lay those questions out for us. We're here for you.
And tell us where you're from along the way. I'm here in Port St. Lucie, Florida, via the way of both Philadelphia and Napatamos, Greece. Where are you from? Before we begin answering your questions, let's talk about a few things that we have to help you in your goals. We have a completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job Guide. This will tell you every set of skills that you absolutely need, and it will help you get to your goals. It's completely free, and you can download it. And guess what? Tomorrow, we have an absolutely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And we'll present to you for 30 minutes, and it's going to be on Zoom. So you can have a face-to-face conversation with us. You can ask us questions live, full questions we'll be able to hear. If you want to assess us, any part of your background, we can do that absolutely as well, too, because it's live. It's on Zoom, and we can have a face-to-face conversation. Think you're ready to interview for a job? You got 6 certifications, and you think you're ready? guess what? I'll give you a little mini interview and you can see if those certifications prepared you for anything. Whatever the case is, it's here and we want to get you there. And there's a massive difference between certified and getting hired. And that's why we're really here. I want you to get the best of the best of the best. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So we'll begin answering your questions. Ask them. Don't be shy. I don't bite. Even my cat Cindy doesn't bite. She's a sweet little thing unless you're smaller than she is. So ask your questions. Don't be shy. I want to make sure we help you get to your goals. Tyrone in the back end, do we have any? Okay, well, looks like we do.
Oh, this is from Cloud Station, Mike, and they're asking if one has a business analyst background, how can it be applicable to a cloud architect career?
Well, Cloud Station, here's the thing. The cloud architect is a business executive who's also a technology professional. Now, analysts are kind of behind the scenes kind of people. They may be doing some number crunching. So there is some benefit. So let's talk about the skills that an architect has. I'm going to tell you right now, certification provides 0 architect skills. I'm going to say it again. Cloud architect certifications like the Certified Solution Architect Professional will teach you 0 about how to become a cloud architect. They'll teach you the name of the service and how to configure it, which is what cloud admins do, which is not what architects do. So it depends on what the business analyst has done. But I'll tell you, if that business analyst has good business acumen, it's great. So here's what and business analyst is a meaningless term, Cloud Station, as far as I'm concerned. I've seen business analysts that literally just type information into spreadsheets. And I've seen business analysts that are actually doing some ROI modeling. And the key is, what does business analyst mean? It's a term that's basically meaningless to the rest of the world. So here's the good news. The job of the architect is to optimize our client's business performance through strategic designs. Those designs involve people, processes, and technology. So the business analyst, if they know a lot about business, it will be a strong asset to them. Now, the business analyst, by comparison, is they're kind of a back-end person. So if the business analyst has good presentation skills, good sales skills, good leadership skills, good executive skills, kind of keep this in the back of your mind. Those are the things. So if the business analyst has that, poof, you're going to be in great shape. And the other things that the architect needs to be able to do is they need to be able to communicate to CEOs, CFOs, CTOs, CIOs. They need to be able to lead large teams of system designers. They need to be able to manage stakeholders at the client. They need to be able to sell, because an architect is nothing like an engineer. We have to sell constantly. We need to build ROI models and business cases. So I hope the business analyst will have some of those skills. Now, the next set of skills that the person needs are also network, data center, and cloud skills, understanding how the pieces and parts work together. Remember, we're not engineers. We don't build the stuff. We design the stuff. So for engineers, it's how to do stuff. For architects, it's how to design things, which is a completely different role. Think of the architect that designs the building, the business, the shopping mall, not a construction worker who builds it. And that's why when I work with engineers, even engineers that typically have about 20 years experience, we typically need to retrain their thinking model to become architects. And engineers, when they have experience, are good, but they have to forget a lot of the engineering and be taught architecture, because it's a different thinking to focus on the business than focus on the tech that's right in front of you. But here's the thing, Cloud Station. You know, I can give you Jennifer, who is a mental health tech, who's now working at JP Chase after our training. I could tell you about Daniel Bosu, who dropped out of high school and still working as JP Chase as a cloud architect after our training. I could tell you about Balwinder, who's a stay-at-home mom who we trained that's now working at Microsoft as a cloud solution architect. We can talk about Ivan Tamba or Coyote or Jordan Kitco, for example. Those 3 worked at AWS, never worked in tech before they came to us. And then we can talk about people like Pritipal Sejan, who had 20 years of engineering, and then we retrained him to be an architect, and he got his first enterprise architect job. Or we can talk about Angelo, who was an engineer for many years, and we retrained him, and he's now a cloud architect, actually more of an enterprise architect. And we could talk about people like Jermaine, who was a landscaper selling landscaping gear, who's now working as an enterprise architect. And the point is you can do anything you want with the right training. And that's it. So your background doesn't matter. What matters is the skills and your learning development. You know, 25 years ago when I left healthcare for tech, people were like, you can't do that. You've got no degrees in tech, no experience in tech. I got to tell you, They had network engineers 1 through 4 at WorldCom, which was the world's largest ISP at the time. And I was hired as a network engineer 4 and a lead architect within a couple of months. So, you got to keep these things in the back of your mind. Of course you can. Of course you can. But you'll be in great shape with the right training. But you're going to have to train for it.
Again, from Cloud Station, which is more beneficial to a newbie, pursuing a generalist type cloud architect career or being a specialist in a particular domain?
Well, Cloud Station, what are your goals? And that's really the key. If you love tech, go be a specialist. Focused on the network, focused on security, focused on big data, and you'll be there. Now, I want to make it clear to you, Cloud Station, the closer you are to the tech, the less you're going to earn as a rule. The closer you are to the business, the more you're going to earn. And that was the hardest lesson for me when I started my technology career. Before I even got my first job, I had a CCNA, CCNP, CCDP, MCSE, and nobody cared. And then I got my CCIE 6 months later and my CISSP a few months later. And here's the thing to remember. My manager said it to me. It was like a wall hit me in the face. My manager said, Mike, he said, before you do that 80th certification, he said, do you want to know the difference? This was 25 years ago, between a $150,000 engineer like you and a $300,000 architect. And I said, yes, please tell me. And he said, look, he said, your tech skills are going to get you this far. He said, you've already peaked them. You can't get any further. He said, if you want to earn more and you want to have better career opportunities, here's what you need to do. He said, you need to make a bigger impact in your client other than just giving them tech stuff. He said, you need to be able to understand their business problems so you can craft solutions to improve their business performance. He said, you need to be able to build and lead large teams. He said, you need to manage stakeholders. He said, I want you to be better at sales so you can close more of those billion-dollar deals like the last one you and your team did. He said, I want you to understand how to raise the people in the room and be more emotionally intelligent. He said, I need you to have executive presence. You feel too engineering, and I want you to feel more business-like. He said, you do that, you'll have your $300,000 job. Well, 25 years ago, I listened to that. I had finished my MBA. I took $100,000 of sales training, management training, leadership training, executive presence training, CXO relevancy. And 25 years ago, I had my $300,000 job. So the key is the closer you are to the tech, the less you're going to earn. The closer you are to the business, the more you're going to earn. And if you go to salary.com, you can see the salaries of people that work in business versus people that work in tech. For example, here's a salary of a senior director that works at IBM. This is a leadership job. I'm sorry, at Cisco. Average salary $527 with a pay range of $417,000 to $689. IBM pays a little less, but they've been in business forever. Great company. Average pay is $399, but the range of $314 to $512. And I'll give you another example. Palo Alto Network Senior Director. Again, this is a business job. And you see the average pay is $540, $813, and the pay range is $425 to $709. These are business roles. Now, the principal architect, and I was a principal architect in 2 years, again, is a business role. You can see Google, the average principal architect earns $508. And what's different about a principal architect than a regular architect? It's more strategic. So it's more business, it's more presentations, it's more executive briefings. You're dealing with about a $500,000 job for a principal architect at Google, about $380 over at Microsoft. And you can see the farther away you get from the technology, the more you actually earn. So I personally would focus on business. I used to focus on the tech. I used to be an infrastructure architect. And then I realized that this enterprise architect, or even a cloud architect with an enterprise architect focus, like we teach our students, they earn more. They have more opportunities. So for me, I'd rather see, but you go on the business side, unless you love the tech. And if you love the tech, go focus on the tech. So the bigger question is for you, Cloud Station, is what's going to make you happy? What's going to make you happy?
From Dan Higgins, I have no prior IT background and can probably commit 10 hours of study per week. What sort of timeline should I work towards to get cloud certified?
Well, Dan Higgins, the question is, do you desire a career or do you desire to get certified? I could get you certified with the AWS Solutions Architect Professional in less than 1 month. I could point you to the right practice exam and poof, you're certified. Now, will you be hireable? Now, Dan, I've also interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people, and many of them passed the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And I asked them, what is cloud computing? Not a single person actually understood what cloud computing was. And then I asked them real business things. How would you architect a trading system to save 1 millisecond? Because that could mean millions of dollars a year for a bank. They didn't even know what a trading system was. Or what do you mean reduce the latency? Or how would you load share across equal cost direct connections? You wouldn't know. Or if an organization's weighted average cost of capital is 5.7%, how would you compare the costs and finances of building a financial product, building a private cloud versus leveraging the public cloud in terms of cost after we account for financing? None of this stuff, no architecture is taught in the certification. So what's your goal, Dan? What career do you actually want? Because I'll tell you, I can get you 50 certifications in 6 months. Easy. But you won't be able to do anything with it. So what do you want? So, I've spoken to thousands of employers, thousands of hiring managers, thousands of executives over the years. And I said, do you care about people's certifications? And they all laughed. They're like, Mike, the only certification that ever means anything to us is the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. Because at least we know if the person passes that, they know something. We don't assume they're great, but at least we know they know something. And Cisco gives us a big discount on our service packages if we have people. And when we call for support, when things break, we don't have to deal with the first person when you call and they give you a bad answer and then you got to escalate it. If you're a CCI, you're already escalated to good support. So that's the only reason I know people that care about that. So what do you want to do, Dan? You give me the career and I'll give you the skills. And then you get those skills. Then you spend a couple of days passing the certification and then you have a career. But what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
Absolutely, Mike. Jabari, I work as an enterprise account engineer for a FANG company, basically a technical account manager. Is it realistic, Mike, to want to secure an enterprise architect role directly after this?
Jay Barry, if you get training to be an architect, the answer is absolutely yes. So I know lots of enterprise account engineers with FANG, and it's a techie role. There's some pre-sales in it, but it's a techie role. An architect is an executive. So, Jabari, you're going to have the same level of je ne sais quoi, the same level of soft skills, the same level of leadership skills as an architect, the same level of executive presence, and more than, say, a global account manager in your organization, not a technical account manager. The enterprise architect is a director level or VP level role. The enterprise architect is considered strategic leadership. And the enterprise architect will either consult to the CIO or work for the CIO in a business, direct report. So we're not talking about engineering here. Now, if you have an MBA, yeah, go straight from an enterprise account engineer to an enterprise architect, you should be fine. As long as you learn enterprise architecture concepts, which are different than what you'd be taught in an MBA, but at least they're similar. But if your role's been hands-on, and you're going in and you're talking to people and you're demoing tech, that's engineering and not architecture. So, Jabari, I'm going to ask you this question. How many executive briefings have you done? For example, when the CEO, the CIO, the CFO, and the CTO come in and you present to all of them, I would ask you, how many major industry conferences have you presented at? This is an enterprise architect skill. I would ask you, what types of teams do you lead in your role as an enterprise account engineer? When you have a big client, say a $500 million client, and in this $500 million client, they need big data, they need voice, they need data, they need video. What kind of teams of people are you building? Are you building teams of 20 to 50 people? If the answer to that is yes, you have the skills. Have you built a business case to show organizations, for example, that the cost of the architecture that you're going to design compared to the business processes is going to be there? What's your level of experience with business process re-engineering and business architectures? If the answer to this is you've been doing it, then poof, you're ready. If the answer is not, you're going to need to do what I did. Or you can take our training, especially if you've got something for enterprise architects and you're going to do great. But here's what I mean. Here's what I did. So I was a Cisco Certified Internet Expert. I was a CISSP. I had a bunch of those other certifications like CCNPs and things, but I'm not even going to count them because they're nothing compared to the CCI and the CISSP combined. So I had that. Now, I went and did 3/4 of one MBA program at Drexel University. I got to tell you, I got no education worth talking about at Drexel University. It was the worst use of time, effort, and money in my entire life. So I left that ridiculous MBA program 3/4 of the way through. I then got a job, and I then continued to work on Wall Street as an engineer. And then I worked for Cisco as an engineer. I was and things like that. I was also a principal architect, and prior to this. And then to secure my first enterprise architect job, after being a principal architect for years and being an engineer, I did a second MBA at Widener University, and I got an incredible education. And then my manager sent me to leadership training, sales training, CXO relevancy training, multiple sets of presentation training, lots of executive presence training. It was about an additional $100,000. And poof, I got my first enterprise architect job. And that's why I train people in enterprise architecture every day, because it's an expensive skill. And that's why a good enterprise architect could earn $300,000 to $500,000 or more. And I know plenty of great architects that are earning $800,000 plus as a chief architect. But you're going to have to give you something that's going to get you out of that engineering mindset and making you think like an architect, because it's a completely different career, a completely different career.
One thing I definitely like to share, Mike, is that a lot of people spend so much time focusing on the tech, and they need to understand that we use the tech as a toolbox towards building the business. We don't just wrap the business around the tech. If it's a shiny new piece of tech and it's innovative and everyone is using it, that's all well and good. But is this the right tech for the business? Is
Yes.
it going to increase efficiency, reduce technical debt? Is this going to enhance market share or a new workflow through change management of how employees are doing their job? The tech has to make sense, and we teach you how to do that using that business acumen, CXO relevance, emotional intelligence, and so forth, so that everyone can communicate and understand on the same page. Now, a cloud architect does a lot of liaison work between the cloud engineer or C-suite level, so that everyone understands from their role viewpoint how to get the job done. And it's up to the cloud architect, ergo us, to be able to implement that using those particular business skills. From Diggleman, it's always great to see you, Diggleman. If you are selling a large architecture, how do you soften them up over meetings and outings, Mike?
Well, Diggleman, it's a lot of things. Look, right now, I'm not going to have any executive presence. Alonzo is to say, "Hi, Alonzo. How are you today?" Like, he's already looking at me like he's ready to kick me out of the room. And he will. He'll survive 5 minutes. He'll make up an excuse, and the meeting's over. So first, you have to develop the right executive presence. Then you have to find out what that executive cares about. Long before you're softening them up, I'm going to go learn about Alonzo's business. Because if my architecture doesn't improve his business, I just wasted his time, effort, and money, and I hurt him versus helping him. Now, Dingleman, what if I told you that over 50% of all cloud architectures damage the business that adopts it? I'm going to say it again. More than 50% of all cloud architectures are considered abject failures, and they actually hurt the customer versus helping them. And here's the reason why, Dingleman. So many people go straight to the technology. I love the tech. I got the certified thing. I got to use all this icky new, brand new, exciting tech. And poof, companies hurt. So if you understand the client and you understand their needs, you're in a position to help them. And long before you soften somebody up, you need to know what they do. Now, in the process of getting the information, I might spend $50,000 to $100,000 on the corporate credit card as an enterprise architect or a cloud architect. And I can tell you as a network architect, in 1 year, I spent $100,000 on my Cisco American Express card, traveling to people, talking to people, entertaining them. Of course, the company was happy to pay for it because that's what it took to get the information. But I want to make it clear, you're going to be spending a lot of time with your client. For a big architecture, you might be golfing with them, you may be taking them to a football game, and you might be prepaid box seats. You're going to be spending time with your client. Then you're going to be living at your client's site for a little while, asking department heads what they do, asking frontline workers what they do. And then your architecture is going to be a problem solver. And, when you complete that architecture and your architecture is $150 million, which is nothing in the way of architectures, because they get much more expensive than at least the stuff that I work on, you've got to be able to show that client that, look, here's your business problem. You got a productivity issue with your salespeople that's keeping them from selling this. We fix this, you add another $50 billion of revenue here. Look, your supply chain's messed up. And because your supply chain's messed up and your forecasting's messed up, you don't have what you need when you need it, or else you're stocking stuff and the inventory is spoiling. So by optimizing your supply chain and adding some AI, we can now add another $100 million of net income to you. Now, Mr. Client, while you're at it, your customer experience, it's a little rough, and I know you've admitted it to me. We can use this technology to improve your customer experience, which we think will enhance revenue this way. Oh, client, while you're at it, you know what? You have large amounts of fuel costs. Maybe you can purchase large option contracts and fly your fuel once the rest of the year at the lowest price, and we can use artificial intelligence to help forecast that. Oh, are you not sure about your sales? Well, we can track historical information. We can leverage your data warehouses, your NoSQL databases, your relational databases. And with that, we can find a way to improve your sales forecasting so you know what to sell and what discount to use to maximize your revenue. And the solution, and that might provide another $150 million of benefit for you. And we could do it all for $150 million. So, Alonzo, got a question for you.
Shoot.
I can give you this phone, and I charge you $100,000 for it, but it could increase your earnings for $1 million. What would you do?
I'll purchase that. Good.
You wouldn't care about the cost of the phone. You'd care about the other $900,000 profit.
Mm-hmm.
The dingo, you have to create the solution. Now, part of sales is understanding your client, getting the right information, and then showing them that you will help them achieve their goals. That's the softening up. Now, sure, you'll drink with them, you'll take them out, you'll entertain them, you'll build a relationship. But if your product isn't good enough or you don't have a real solution, you're not helping anyone, and nobody will buy your things. But it's also when you take them out, you have to know what to say and who to say and how to say it. You have to be able to read body language, and that's one of the reasons I teach my students body language. It's one of the reasons for the social cues and all these things. And executive presence is you have to develop that. And when you have that, now you're in a really great position.
From Eddie, forget my last question, Mike. My new question is, does your course offer all the knowledge that you've gained over time? I want to be able to answer those questions that will get me into those 300,000 plus roles.
Well, Eddie, I'm going to be fair. In my 25-year career, I've read 3,000 books and received an over $300,000 education. There's no way I could put 7 and 2 is 9 and 2 is 11 years of school, because it's 11 years of school that I went to, plus 2,500 years of experience in a 700-hour architect program. But what I'll tell you is this. In our base cloud architect career development program, you'll be able to answer those questions that I said to you right now. I will also tell you that we had a student, his name is I don't want to mention the last of his name, who just got a $409,000 job in this program. I've had a tremendous number of people get $300,000 plus programs out of our $2,500 cloud architect career development program. A tremendous number of people get these roles. Now in our elite architect program, which is our cloud architect program, tech leadership program, professional branding program, and other ones, we focus much more on these bigger, higher end roles where the cloud architect career development program is designed to help you get your first role. It's very feasible because we do it almost every day, or at least it feels like every day, to take somebody with no background and get them a $150,000 to $200,000 job as the first job. And 2 to 3 years later, get them a $300,000 job. That's easy. But getting your first job as a $300,000 job, I don't want to say that. Getting a job at $150,000 to $200,000, we do it every day. And I'm not talking, we can give you any background you want. I can give you high school dropouts that have gotten jobs here. I can give you sales reps that got, multi-$100,000 architect jobs. I can give you people that worked as a solution architect that were getting paid $130,000, $140,000 that now got a $400,000 job, or $409,000, which is a $250,000 raise after we improved their business acumen, their leadership, their sales skills, their executive presence, their emotional intelligence. That's nothing with the presentation skills. So, those kind of things are easy to do. But it's not fair to say that it's got all of the things. What I will tell you is every major lesson that I've learned for 25 years is in this program. Everything that really matters is in our training. But, I had to get the training down to, say, 700 hours. And, 700 hours, we've got a lot of time. And here's the thing, why we do it. Basically, we have live training 3 days per week. And it's architecture training. It's not engineering training. We've got 1 day of professional development, soft skills in there. We've got videos on leadership, sales, executive presence, emotional intelligence, system design. We cover everything from leading meetings and facilitating meetings and presenting and selling. In fact, right now, my students are consulting with a business right now, and they're designing an enterprise architecture, using a TOGAF framework. They're designing a cloud architecture for them. They're designing a private data architecture and a cloud architecture to see which one's better, because 98% of organizations use multi-clouds or hybrid clouds at this point. Nobody uses a single cloud. So there's that. So join us on the webinar tomorrow. But yeah, we teach all these critical things because I want you to be great.
From Dan, thanks for answering my earlier question. My dream would to become a AWS solutions architect if possible. So it would be more important to focus on the. So would it be more important to focus on the hands-on side of things than move to certs?
Dan, let me explain what the architect is. Hands-on will teach you nothing about system design. So I want you to understand the difference between a designer and a builder. So let's get rid of the computing world because we do the same job. Dan, let's say you wanted a shopping mall designed. Who would you call? You'd call an architect. You'd say, I want the shopping mall to have 200,000 square feet. I want it to have a waterfall. I want it to have ample parking. I would like to have a Nordstrom over here, a Saks over here. I want the centerpiece over here. Maybe we've got some fountains that are inside the thing. We've got some trees, and you'd call an architect. The architect would design a blueprint for you. And then you'd say, yes, I want this. Now, Dan, when you're done, the architect goes to another client and you hire a construction crew. They're the people that use a hammer, a screwdriver, a nail gun, a saw, these kind of tools. I don't know how to use them, but I've seen them. Now, here's the thing, Dan. Nobody asked the construction worker to design the shopping mall. Nobody asked the construction worker to design a bridge. Nobody asked the construction worker to design a hotel, because that's building, and architects don't build, they design. So Dan, I retrain people from all these cloud boot camps every day, because here's what they learn: how to build. And architects don't build. It's not part of our job. So no, if I give you a screwdriver, it's not going to teach you how to design a hotel or a shopping mall or the Golden Gate Bridge or even an airplane or even a rocket ship that's going to take you to Mars. You have to study design for that. And the problem with the certification is as follows. The certification teaches the name of the service and how to configure that service, which is a sysadmin role. Architects don't configure anything. Now, here's the other side of it, Dan. I can't use terms like elastic compute cloud with my client. I'll be escorted out of the building by security and fired. Now, if Alonzo is my CEO and I talk to Alonzo, let's talk about migrating your 10,000 virtual machines to AWS. Let's talk about moving your 2 petabytes of storage to AWS. Let's talk about how we're going to architect your demilitarized zones for maximum security. Let's talk about your other enterprise-wide security. While we're at it, let's talk about your projecting and your forecasting, Dan. Now we're speaking architecture. And guess what, Dan? If you're an architect, you're not going to touch the technology. You need to understand how it works. And you'll be at the point where whether it's a virtual machine running on VMware, ESXi, or vSphere, one of these, whether it's a virtual machine running on Citrix Xen, whether it's a Windows Hyper-V virtual machine in the data center, whether it's an AWS EC2 instance, an Azure virtual machine, a Google Compute Engine instance, or an Oracle virtual machine, it's the same thing. And that's the key, is I need to know, what is the system? What does that hypervisor do? How does that hypervisor manage business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So keep that in the back of your mind. Please come to the How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. I'm going to give you a list of everything you really need to know, all of it, 100%. And you can either train with us, and 6 to 12 months later, you'll have the skills to be hireable, or at least you'll know what you can do and where you can learn it. But it has nothing to do with hands-on configuration. It's sad. Every day I get people, and they know how to configure, and then they want a job as a designer. And I say, I'm sorry. I know you spent $5,000 for this ridiculous boot camp that taught you nothing. I know you know how to build this. Now, how do you? I ask them a design question, and they don't know. And then the company says, come back when you have more experience. But then, I don't care whether you're Pierre Dassault, who was working on sailboats, who's a cloud architect now, Lenny Burnett, who was a video editor, who's an incredible cloud architect. It just doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you're Jermaine Helfton, who was selling landscaping gear, who's now an working architect. I don't care if you're Wallace Sagana, who was a sales rep, who's now an enterprise architect with JP Morgan Chase, or Jennifer Ema, who was a mental health tech with JP Morgan Chase, or even Yvonne, who's over at AWS after working as a waiter, or Jeffrey West, who was a geologist who got his first cloud architect job. It doesn't matter your background. It matters you get the right skills. So you want to be a doctor? You go to medical school. I promise you, if you become a nurse, nobody's going to hire you as a doctor just because you have experience. To go from a nurse to a doctor, you have to go to medical school. So learn the right skills. Please download the free guide. Please come to our free webinar tomorrow, and we'll give you the skills or tell you the skills that you need to learn, and you will be highly successful. Dan, it's a great career. I absolutely love it. By the way, Dan, in the chat box, do you have any relatives named Stuart? If you do, let me know.
Douglas. Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoy the stream. Mike and the Go Cloud team are great. They will certainly bring value to you no matter where you are in your careers and skills development. Thanks so much, Douglas. Always good to see you. From Eugene, how does the cloud architect role compare with commercial account executive roles? I have seen sales roles with cloud providers that require cloud knowledge.
Well, Eugene, here's what I want you to think about. When I see a commercial account executive role, I typically think a junior sales rep. When I think a global account executive role, I typically think somebody big. So you're going to need more business acumen to be a cloud architect than you actually will with a commercial account manager, because that's like the intro level account manager as a rule. The architect needs more. So more executive presence, better sales ability than a commercial account executive, less sales ability than, say, a global account manager or a VP of sales or a director of sales. Same level of business acumen, the same level of executive presence. But here's the thing. I'm not sticking my commercial account executive in front of the CEO of, say, JP Morgan Chase. I'm just not. I'll put my global account manager there with them. I'll put my VP of sales with them, but not my commercial account executive. My commercial account executive I put in front of a business that's got 50 to 100 people in it, no more. My enterprise account executives I put in moderate-sized businesses. My global account executives I put in the big strategic companies. Like if you were going to sell to Bank of America, or you were to sell to JP Morgan Chase, or you were to sell to IBM. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So more business, more leadership, more executive. Now here, you know, when you deal with these salespeople, they pretend they know something, but they'll just sell anything. And the reason companies have architects is they're typically paired with the account executive. And you've got a global account manager that you're paying $500,000 a year. And you've got an architect that could potentially be earning $500,000 a year. The global account manager earns 300 and the architect earns 300. It depends on the size of the accounts and the strategic nature of these things. But the architect needs much more technical skills. The sales rep may or may not know how the things work. Actually, I can guarantee you they don't. And the companies have the what do you call it, the architects with them to make sure the sales rep don't sell things that don't work. Because I promise you, the best way to destroy your business is to sell something that does not work. So that's why you're there. You're there with the account executive, but generally speaking, commercial account executive is pretty low on the totem pole compared to an enterprise account executive or a global account executive, or what we're talking about. So I'd say what you need is enterprise account manager, enterprise account executive level business skills to be great. And you combine that with really good technical skills, not hands-on technical skills, but system design. How do you design this? How do you design this? How do you design this? And the reason we need at least as good a business skills as, say, an enterprise account manager is if we're going to design a solution to improve our customers' business performance, and we don't have that deep business acumen, how do you solve it? How do you do it? You can't. You know, it's like if a patient came in with a medical condition, if you don't understand how the body works normally, and you don't understand the disease state or pathology, you're not in a position to assess the patient to determine what disease they have, make a diagnosis, and then create the right treatment plan. And really, I'll tell you, when I left medicine for architecture 25 years ago, I really do the same job. You know, I go to my client, I ask about their issues, what's keeping them up at night, where they want to go, what challenges they have. Did the same thing in healthcare. By this point, I assess the care and systems the same way I used to assess my patients. I make a diagnosis in medicine, and in business, I make a hypothesis. And in medicine, I write a prescription. And in architecture, I design an architecture which is a plan. But I don't carry out the plan. I write a plan in the hospital, and the nurses carry out the plan. I write an architecture in the business world, and the engineers carry out the plan. So it's a great role. But I'd say it's a cross between the engineer and a much bigger, more executive sales role than a commercial sales role. I hope that makes sense. And if not, please ask more. I love answering questions. I love helping.
From Ed. Hi, Mike. I am from a medical background and have watched all your YouTube videos. Is user design and business acumen enough to land a $200,000 role? He's a medical doctor from Africa, and he immigrated to Canada. From then, the cloud tech evolution caught my attention. I am switching careers.
So Ed, I think you're dealing with when you're dealing with a physician, you're dealing with far more than a $200,000 career as an architect over time. And here's why. So it's funny. Right now, I have a student. She's a pharmacist. She's been with me for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and I had her deliver a presentation in class, a Lottie, and everybody was mesmerized and glued to her. And then I said, for fun, I actually asked her something in her world. And it was very simple. And I asked her to describe how a macrolide antibiotic worked in this particular case. And she was even better than she was with the tech. So here's the key. Here's what you know coming from medicine. The biggest part of the architect job is as following. First, you have to establish trust with your client. You know how to do that for medicine. You'll be in good shape. And yes, you'll do well. The second thing you need to be able to do is elicit or obtain the right information. In medicine, I'm very familiar with it. We've got to ask a patient about their condition, their drug use, their drinking, or any kind of ridiculous things they've done in their life. In architecture, we've got to ask the business about their business. We've got to ask what mistakes they have made, what problems they have, and they're equally as unhappy to tell us these things as a patient would be. Now, we have to sell a lot. When I learned medicine, I remember when I was doing my preceptorship, my preceptor, the physician that I was training under, he hands me the book, and it was the Dale Carnegie book, and he said, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I said, but I'm learning to practice medicine. Why do I need to learn sales? And he said, Mike, no patient is ever going to want to follow their treatment plan. You tell somebody to lose weight, stop smoking, and exercise, they're going to laugh at you. You got to sell them. He said, wait till you try and provide warfarin or Coumadin to a patient that's got AFib. You said, wait till you see how they're not going to want to take it until you learn how to sell. So I learned how to sell. In medicine, you have to learn how to lead, whether they be interns, residents, or other nurses. So you're going to be there. Now, you're also going to have the presence for medicine. Now, we're going to have to tweak those leadership skills a little bit, and I know so. And the reason I'm going to have to tweak your leadership skills are there's a different level of leadership at the physician level than there typically is here. We're talking about like a chief medical officer level of physician leadership, or the physicians that are the CEOs of the hospital that are not really great business people, but they're like half business people, half physicians. We're going to have to get to that level. Now, sure, yeah, totally. We can easily teach you these network data center and cloud concepts. I'm 100% sure we can. And why? I've taught a lot of medical people, and they're all doing great. They're doing fantastic. And, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So I know you will do great. Your first job might be 150 to 250, but 3-4 years from now, I'm sure you can get a $300,000 to $500,000 job, and that's not going to be a problem. So, we're talking about really good things for you. I love absolutely working with healthcare people. Oh, I see you're Cameroonian. I even have Eddie, who's part of our team, who works for us, that actually lives in Bamenda, Cameroon, and I do a lot of work with groups over there. You're going to do really, really great. You have a really great background. And it's like anything else. Instead of learning the organ system, the musculoskeletal system, you learn the underlying technology, and you're going to be great. So congratulations for coming into tech. I did it about 25 years ago. In fact, I think I use a medical process to absolutely everything. You will love it, and it'll be a really great career. And most of the skills that you have for medicine are completely transferable. In fact, it's funny, Chris and Alonzo from my team and they sent me an image. And I said, can we use in this image because this person has this disease? And they said, how can you tell? And I said, because I can see it. So Ed, I really would love to work with you. I think you'll do fantastic. And I'd love to have another medical person be a success story and get a great tech job. I would absolutely love it.
From Alan, the business acumen and presentation skills I've learned in this program helped me make a great first impression meeting CISOs. Career road mapping helped me articulate my desires. Thank you, Mike.
Alan, thanks so much for that. Alan, I'm real curious to sync up with you. I expect some incredible things for you. You're very fine and you're growing and you're doing so wonderfully. So can't wait to hear about how those few things that are going on that we talked about last week. I'm very proud of you. You are a very solid architect. You've got really good skills, really strong skills, and you're very capable. So Alan, can't wait to hear the news. Let me and Alonzo know. We're really excited for you and all of your success.
Absolutely.
If anyone has questions, please pop them in the chat box so we can answer.
Jabari asked, Mike, do any of your students use the GI Bill to pay for your program?
Jabari, we don't necessarily accept the GI Bill, but we work with a tremendous number of veterans. We thought about working with them, but once we accept government funding, we'd have to, by the time we'd have to do their paperwork, we'd need an army of attorneys and it would take paperwork and we'd have to raise the cost of our program about 10x like the other people do. And we didn't want to do that to everybody else. Average cloud architect earns right now over $800 a day because the average cloud architect solution architect salary right now is $237,000. And our tuition is 3 days pay for the average graduate. And my focus is this: can we run a company where we basically charge what our costs are, maybe a little bit ever, just so we have the best instructors in the world? My goal is, since I don't need to work, is to get people the best jobs in the world and get them a career that they're honestly going to love. Now, I will tell you, we do have a special program for veterans that we care about because we love veterans. And if you want to send an email to info@gocloudcareers.com, either Alonzo from my team or Chris from my team or somebody else will work with you on the veterans program, which is slightly different than our traditional program. So we thank you for your service. We are very grateful for what you've done for us in providing our safety, providing our freedom, and providing us this wonderful country that we have the opportunity to live in. And I've lived in a lot of parts of the world in my life, and I'm excited to be here. So I hope that helps. And then email to info@gocloudcareers.net. go.com.net, and we'll help you and work with you. Ask us your questions, because if you don't have any questions, we can't really help you, and that's why we're here. We're really here to help you. Ed will understand. While I also started out in emergency medicine, most of what I did was internal medicine, and it's much better for me to get somebody and help them get to their goals than treat them after being sick. So, these things are very important to us to help clients get to our goals. And that's why we're here. So if you've got a question, ask it. And if you don't have a question, Alonzo and I have got a lot of things to do, but I love answering questions. I've dedicated extra time. So ask us your questions so we can help you. And
I know there's someone who has questions out there. This is your opportunity. Definitely, please.
And this is our world. We want to help you. Okay, I see there's a question from Gene. Please ask your question. So,
for those in the non-live program, is there an opportunity to be assessed in interviews and presentations?
Well, let's talk about both of us. So, in the live program, the answer is I can assess you and personally guide you. And you're going to be giving presentations in class, and we're going to guide you, we're going to coach you, and we're going to make you better because you're live. In a non-live program where you're watching recordings of the live class, I can't really gauge you. Now, I will tell you, even in the non-live programs, you will be giving presentations and you'll be video recording them and you'll be submitting them, and my team will give you feedback. So you're still going to get better. We've had a tremendous number of people graduate that never attended classes and watched the class recordings and got great jobs. I'll also tell you that 80% of our students work full-time and manage to get through and do quite nicely. But there is a major difference between the live and the non-live. In the live class, for example, right now in the live program, the students are working with a business right now. And I was functioning as the chief information officer of that business, which is actually reality because I do consult to them as their chief information officer, as a virtual chief information officer. And when the client presented the issue, we asked the questions together as a group. I led the discussion, and then the students asked their clients or the CEO of the business. The students worked and built the business architecture for the business. They understood the client's architectural vision for the future of the company and worked on that. And now they're in the process of designing the data and the technology architecture. And guess what they're going to do? They're working together feverishly to design this wonderful solution. And next week, what they're going to do in our classes are, the teams are going to, in a contest, and we've got prizes for the winners, of course. We're going to make the teams compete against each other on the best architecture. And who's going to judge that architecture? The CEO of the business, the actual CEO, as well as the chief information officer. So it's a really good thing, but that's the live classes. Now, if you weren't in the live classes, you'd watch the videos of the other people doing that, which is still valuable. But only in the live do we get to see you because you're in the live classes. And that's the difference between the live and the non-live. The training is identical. All the lessons are the same. In the live class, you take the class, do the work live, and we record those classes. And then the non-live people get to watch the recorded classes. It's the same training. I think there's a value in being there if you can and if you can. But if you can't, we created the non-live programs because we work with a tremendous number of people in the developing world. And we're talking about people that are so nice and so decent that we had to create something to really help provide better lives and better opportunities for people like that. Hope I answered your question there, and please feel free to ask more.
From Philip, is it better to start as a cloud administrator, then switch to cloud engineer, then on to cloud architect, or is it better to start the journey as a cloud architect, Mike?
Philip, if you want to be a cloud architect, go learn to be a cloud architect. Philip, I'm going to ask you this question a little differently. Let's say your goal was to be an airplane pilot. Do you think it would be in your best interest to go to school and become a flight attendant, and then work as a flight attendant for several years? And then after that, go to school and be an airline mechanic for a few years. And then after that, go train to be a pilot. Now, you could have skipped all those years as a flight attendant. You could have skipped all those years as an airplane pilot. So, Philip, here's what happens when you start as a cloud administrator. First, there's almost no jobs for cloud administrators. I don't need them anymore. Why do I not need them? Because artificial intelligence can't do what an architect does, but it can do cloud engineer work any day. And one DevOps engineer can basically deploy in 5 minutes what it would take me 100 cloud administrators to do. So to me, running a business, a cloud administrator is a waste of money. So no cloud administrator jobs. They're going to be harder to get a cloud administrator job for $50,000 or $60,000 a year than it would be to get a $170,000 architect job. So I'd skip that. Now, the next problem is once you're an administrator, the world sees you as techie, the guy behind the keyboard. And there's nothing wrong with being the techie if that's your goal. But the problem is when you want to be an architect and they're looking for an executive, they don't want a techie. So now you got to unbrand yourself as the administrator to now get the engineer job. Now on the engineering job, you're going to spend all this time learning how to build on the cloud, which you're never going to do as an architect. So now you got to learn another person's career. I'm going to tell you, and maybe Mark Milonovich, who's actually in the chat box, can actually comment here. When you're an engineer and you want to be an architect, you have to unlearn the thinking that you had as an engineer to be an architect. It's like if a nurse wants to become a doctor, now they got to stop thinking like a nurse and start thinking like a physician. So now you got to rebrand from the admin. Now you got to rebrand to be the engineer. And then after that, you know what you're going to need, Philip? Architecture training. I'm working with people with 10 and 15 years experience cloud engineers, and it takes them at least as much time to get hired as a solution architect or a cloud architect than it does a mental health tech, or it does, somebody that's doing anything. So why would you do it? Plus, the average cloud architect earns $237,000. The average cloud admin earns $60,000. So what are you going to do? Lose, realistically speaking, $150,000 for the first 3 years of your life as a cloud admin, and then lose $100,000 a year for the next 3 years of your life as an engineer. And basically you lost, 300 times 450, you lost $750,000. Whereas if you started as the architect, you'd earn more immediately. In 7 years in your architecture career, you could be a $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 architect. Where do you want to be? So I never decided that I was going to start my career by working in the mailroom and doing that for a little while, and then be the receptionist, and then get somebody their coffee, and then get a junior level role, and then get a medium level role, and then get a medium level role in there. I just went to school, got an education, started with something senior. So the choice is yours. I'll tell you, you'll be better if you don't spend your time learning other people's jobs. I'll tell you, you'll have a better future if you don't spend other people's jobs. And if you start as a cloud architect as your first job, like most of my students do, where do you want to be 7 years from now? Do you want to be a chief architect? Do you want to be a principal architect? Do you want to be a senior director? Do you want to be a VP? Do you want all these things? That's what I suggest. So I train for the job I want, not somebody else's job. That's my recommendation.
Back to Alan, Mike. Could you talk about how to increase your ability to sell, improving how to sell both yourself and your clients, Mike?
Yes. So first, in the art of war, I'm going to give you a quote. And guys and girls that are out there, please ask your questions so we can help you. In the art of war, they said, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you will always be victorious. If you know yourself and not your enemy, for every win, there'll be one loss. If you know your enemy and not yourself, for every win, there'll be one loss. And if you don't know your enemy and you don't know yourself, you'll lose every time. So part of it is knowing what you're good at. And the next thing to know is what your clients needs. Now, Alan, I know you. Here's what I see. A level of authenticity that is sky high and off the chart. A level of energy, enthusiasm, and passion that is sky high and off the chart. Bless you, Alonzo. A level of decency and honor code in you, Alan, which is really strong. Here's what else I see. I see an inner fight to be the best. I've seen it. I know it. You know how you work 2 jobs most of your life? That oomph in you, that fire in you, I see it. It's there. So I see that. So if you were going to try to sell me in a position, well, right now, Alan, I'd hire you because I see these things. And while I can train you for skills, I can't train that attitude. I can't train that authenticity, and I can't train that decency. That's impossible to find. It's pretty much why every job you had pretty much gave you management skills from the beginning. Now, how do you sell, Alan? Well, it involves a lot of things. One, it's involved learning where the sales process, and you're doing pretty good, especially for your age, you're doing really good. The next side of it is, what does your client need? Solve their problem. And you've got to be able to solve their problem. And that's the key. So you've got to be able to find their problem, and you've got to have the creativity in your mind to be able to solve that problem. And then you've got to have the oomph in you to be willing to go sell it. Alan, I would tell you, with what I've seen from you, keep practicing. In fact, what I saw from you a week ago when we had our call really impressed me. If I was you, I would literally practice trying to sell stuff to everybody I know. You got a wife, try to sell her on going to dinner at your favorite restaurant. You got to start small. Sometimes for me, that's even a big challenge. I want to go to the Ethiopian restaurant and my wife wants to get a cheeseburger. Well, you got to figure that one out, for example. Now, how would you sell someone body language? I have to do that with my cat. My cat wants to chew something and I got to convince her not to, but that's neither here nor there. My cat's really cute and special, by the way, but I always talk about Cindy too much. But figure out someone's problems and create a solution to their problem. And show them why it's the solution. And here's the thing, Ellen, there's 2 kinds of people in this world and how they process sales. And there's me, and here's my approach. If I go to an expert, and I know they're an expert, a legitimate expert, and they say, here's your problem, here's my solution, I feel good. Now, if I know they're not an expert, for example, today I saw someone give the worst advice. They were saying, if I was going to start a tech career, here's what I would do. Year 1, do a, what do you call it? The CompTIA A+. Year 2, to a CCNA. Year 3, learn how to use a next generation firewall. Now, when I saw that, I laughed and I said, month 1, do the CCNA. Month 3, CCNP. Month 6, CISSP. Now learn your skills, and a year later, you're already in a better place than that person wasted 3 years of their life. Because that's not how you build a career. So it's authenticity. If you sell someone something and you show the metrics on how your solution is going to work, you're going to be there. Alan, if you're dealing with a visual person, use visual terms in the way you communicate with them. If you're dealing with an auditory person, use auditory terms in your language. If you're dealing with a kinesthetic, use kinesthetic terms. Now, while you're there, you also got to read the person's body language, which I've taught you to do. When you're speaking, if the person's leaning in and they're excited, keep talking. If they're shaking their head, get off that topic. If their feet point to the door, stop and be quiet right then and there. They're trying to leave the room. So that's also part of it. So it's a matter of how you communicate with them how you find what their problems are, and the types of solutions you create for them. And you'll be good. But Alan, I've seen you. I've watched you grow. I'm pretty impressed. And you are young. And despite your young age, you're really doing great.
From Victor. Hi, Mike. It's Victor from London. How possible is it for a non-tech person to get cloud hired with no experience in the possibilities of migrating from cybersecurity to cloud security?
Victor, it's nothing. I mean, it's simple with the right skills. You can get any job you want with the right skills. Here's the problem, Victor. People go to employers, I want to be an architect, and they know how to code, they know how to configure. They're not an architect because architects don't code and architects don't configure. Unhireable. So the key is getting the right skills. You want to be an airplane pilot, what do? You go to medical school. You want to be a physician, you go to flight school. You want to be a physician, you go to flight school. You want to be a lawyer, you go to law school. I can't hire somebody that doesn't have the right skills. So the key is first, you got to find the job that you want. And then you got to work backwards instead of the skills. So Victor, I don't know what job you want, but I can give you example after example. Delray Batt, for example, fine young man, came and visited me in Florida. He was working on ambulances as an emergency medical technician. He took our training. He got a cloud security architect job. While he took our training, he got a cybersecurity role, 3 months into our training, and then he was hired. How about Richard Afukar? Nice young man, came to our training. He was in our training for 3 weeks, got hired by AWS as a technical account manager. That was the role that he wanted, for example. So Jennifer Ema, mental health tech. Guess what? Hired as a solution architect by a big bank. It doesn't matter your background. It matters how good you are. Good you are. That's the key. Your background is irrelevant. Forget about it. It doesn't matter anymore. In fact, Victor, people used to come to me. I used to be able to speak to the students before we admitted them to the program. I can't do that anymore. I wish I did. I could, but we've got thousands of people and people fighting to get in our program. And I'm approached by the media every day to talk to them. So my lifestyle just doesn't allow it. I lost my voice for 2 months, or 4 months by speaking so much. But it's all about skills. Employers don't care about your certifications. It's a joke to them. They care about your skills. Guess what, Victor? 67% of employers don't even care about college degrees anymore. They say the skills are irrelevant. More than 50% of US employers, including big tech companies like IBM and Google, say we don't care about college degrees anymore because they don't provide relevant skills either. You get the skills, you learn how to present yourself, you learn how to sell yourself, and you will have any job you honestly want in the entire world. But you've got to get the right skills. If you desire to be an architect, come join us in our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect job. But you want to give me an example of a company? I'll show you somebody that got hired with no experience. And Victor, I like to use Daniel Bosu so much. Why do I like to use Daniel Bosu? Because this kid took some horrible boot camp, which he paid thousands of dollars for. He came to me and asked what he could do with it. I interviewed him and said nothing. He took our course for $700. He got a major cloud architect program at JP Morgan Chase Bank 6 months later. He didn't graduate high school. I'm going to say it again. He didn't graduate high school. Why do I love this kid so much? Because his family came from Togo. He started with absolutely nothing. And he had a fight in his mind that was so strong that whatever we told him to do, he did it. He didn't question it. And 6 months later, JP Morgan Chase loved him. I remember the day he told me he got the job. I remember when he got his brand new apartment and he's showing me his apartment via video and he's showing me the 2 cute kittens that are following him around from room to room in his house. And I was so happy for him. But the point is, you give me a name, I can show you somebody. It doesn't matter your background. It matters your skills.
For Mark, question. For those on a mission to transition from an engineering career into an architect career, what would you say is the most vital thing or things to keep in mind and then execute to become successful?
Mark asked such a good question. So here's the thing. It's focus. The engineer focuses on the tech. The architect focuses on the business. If your focus is the tech, you're not helping your clients as an architect. Now, the engineers must focus on the tech. If the engineers don't focus on the tech, they're not going to deal with the technical issues. So here's why you need to be focused on the business. First, the whole job of the architect is to improve the business performance. The whole job. Whole job. So the whole job of the engineer is to build the tech. I like to use this as an example. So I'm going to show you two things that came in my backyard. And I'm going to show you the difference between the architect view and the engineer view. Tyrone, if you can share my screen. So, and get rid of the Mark Milonovich text. Okay, so here you go. This happened in my backyard a few months ago, and it was the perfect engineer versus architect. Now, the architect is the strategist that needs to see the big picture. Now, if I was going to be an engineer, I would be focused on that squirrel. Quite frankly, if I was a specialist, say a squirrel podiatrist in the veterinary medicine world, and I was focusing on the squirrel's feet, I would have to put on magnifying glasses and look at that squirrel's feet, because the engineer's role is focused on the tech. Now, there's a major problem here. You only see the squirrel here, but you don't see anything else. The architect needs to tune and optimize the business. So you know what you didn't see in this environment with that cute little squirrel? You didn't see the serious danger. Now, Tyrone, share this. This is really what was going on. See that cute little cat there, the pointy little ears and the nice tail? Her name is Cindy. She's my baby. Now, when I took this photo, Cindy was thinking about how to turn that squirrel into lunch. But you couldn't see it when you were only zoomed in and focused on the squirrel. So the key for the engineer to the architect is to focus that it's no longer a...
Looks like we missed, Mike might have had some technical difficulties, but I'm sure he will be back. And perhaps there might be some other questions that we might be able to answer while he comes, while he reboots. There he is.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I bumped something to the next to me and my mouse actually changed the URL of my streaming service. So apologize for that. But the key is that engineer has to be focused on the tech. And the architect has to be focused on the big picture. Now, if the engineer is not focused on that tech, we're going to have a problem. And if the architect isn't focused on that big picture, in which case this was me when the architect, I picked up Cindy, I closed the door, and I protected the squirrel because I don't want the squirrel to get hurt. I love little animals. But that's really what we're trying to talk about. It's focus. The architect must focus on the business. The engineer must focus on the tech. The second that architect who comes from an engineering program wants to focus on that business, oh, there's a problem. And Mark, I'll tell you early on my first network architect job, first one, the customer was having a BGP issue. And I know you know what BGP is because you're a CCIE like me. And, you know, they had a team of engineers and none of them really knew BGP very well, but I did. And I got all excited. I sat with the engineers. I went to the router with them. I helped troubleshoot her to configure it. And my manager called me into his office and he says, Mike, he says, I'm debating or not whether I should fire you or not. He said, you're the best architect I have, but you're not allowed to touch your client's technology. You touch the client's technology, and that's a big no-no. He said, I don't want engineers as architects. I want architects as architects. So he said, here's the thing. Next time you touch a client's systems, you're fired. Otherwise, you keep doing what you're doing, you're promoted. The choice is yours. So, and I asked him why, and he said, Mike, he said, not only do we have people that we pay to actually do the engineer's job, and it sets the wrong message for the client. He says, you are so focused on BGP, do you know what you missed? I was like, no, what did I miss? And Dave told me what I missed, and I went, okay. And I learned that mistake, never, ever to touch the technology if you want to be a good architect. So that's really the key. And Mark, that is an incredible career. The change in focus from the business to the tech changes everything. It's no different when a nurse goes to medical school or goes to school to become a nurse practitioner, which is like a physician. They have to go from doing it to building the plan, and that's a very different way of thinking.
LinkedIn user. Mike, do you teach multi-cloud platforms? What are the prerequisites as a newbie?
LinkedIn user. Of course we teach multi-cloud. Anybody that just teaches you AWS or just teaches you Azure or just teaches you Google is wasting all your time, effort, and money. 98% of organizations use more than one cloud. So we teach everything. Prerequisites are 0. And why? If you're a cloud engineer with 20 years experience, you need to learn just as much as if you were a doctor that learned yesterday. It's a different job. I assume everybody has nothing. I've interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people and asked them what is cloud computing, and they couldn't even ask me. I've interviewed 1,000 AWS people and had to ask them how to or certify people and ask them how to architect anything, and they didn't know. So I start everyone at ground zero, and here's why. Let's say you've got a software background. Do you know what they generally don't know, the software developers? They don't know networking. They don't know infrastructure, like servers and containers and load balancers and security and firewalls and VPN, because whatever you're at, whatever your experience is, it's only going to be on one perspective of the world. Now you're an architect and you need the big picture. So I start everybody from ground zero. What is the network? How does the network work? What are all the components in the data center? What are all the components in the cloud, which are the same components in the data center? Then, once you know what they are, then how do you assemble them? Then, how do you take a business problem and solve it with what kind of solutions you have? So these are the kind of things that you need to go into it. So I want you to think about that. No prerequisites, but I'm not going to pretend to you it's going to be easy. And, there's 700 hours of training in our program. There's a degree of intensity for it. And I want you to understand, when you're dealing with a job that pays on average $237,000 a year, there's a degree of intensity. The rest of us that earn $200,000 to $500,000 a year went to school for 7 to 10 years, took on $500,000 of debt to do so. You don't need that for this career. It pays what a physician pays. It pays what an attorney pays, but you're going to have to still know, and you're going to have to know a lot. We can easily get you hired. Easily. That's not a problem. We can easily train you and turn you into an incredible world-class cloud architect. But you just have to do the work. Why don't you join us tomorrow on the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar? And while you're at it, please download the free guide on how to get your first cloud architect job. Now, we teach cloud architecture. So LinkedIn user, I'm assuming you want cloud architecture. But I want to make it very clear. If you wanted to do cloud engineering, you're going to need a very different pathway. If you wanted to do DevOps, which I strongly don't recommend for lots of reasons, again, you're going to need a different training program. If you wanted to do maintenance or operations, you're going to need a different training program because these are all different skills. And that's where people go wrong in tech. In healthcare, a physician goes to medical school. A physical therapist goes to school to be a physical therapist. A pharmacist goes to school to be a pharmacist. A nurse goes to school to be a nurse, and they're successful. Where do people go wrong in tech? Let me learn a little this career, a little this career, a little this career, a little that career. And in the end, the person knows nothing about anything because they spread themselves too thin. And that's really what I want you to man. That's the secret to doing well in your career. So yes, maybe join us tomorrow. It's completely free. Ask more questions, but we can easily get you your goal.
From Peter, how important are cover letters and what should a person with a year of tech experience focus on in that cover letter? Thanks, guys.
Oh, Peter, you asked a great question. How important are cover letters? Very. What does your experience have anything to do with what you're going to put in the cover letter? That's the problem with the thinking here. So you're trying to sell, right? So here's the cover letters I get every day. Please hire me. I have 10 years experience as a software developer, a security engineer, and this engineer. And I look at it and I pick up the piece of paper and I literally do this. I toss it in the trash. Now, why? The person's busy telling me about all the stuff they've done. That's the past. That's the history. They're not showing me what they can do for me. So what should be in the cover letter? How you can help your client, not what you've done in the past. Past is history. What you ate for dinner yesterday, I don't care. Now, if you came to me as a patient and you were 400 pounds and morbidly obese, I might ask you what you ate in the last 24 hours so I could plan a better diet for you. Now that I might care, but otherwise, I don't care what you used to do. I just don't. I care what you can do now. And there's the good news, Peter. This is the best news ever. It means you can be anything you truly desire as long as you get the right training. So, for example, if I was writing a cover letter to Alonzo, Alonzo's now the CEO. I like making Alonzo the CEO. He's a great business executive. I have 2 ways that I could do it, Peter. Here's the wrong approach. Hi, Alonzo. I'm an enterprise architect with 25 years experience. I hold a master's degree and I hold a master's in science. I hold a master's in business administration and a CCIE. Please consider me for an application. Now you can read the body language in Alonzo. He's kind of like, yeah. Now, Peter, here's the thing. Hi, Alonzo. I'm Mike Gibbs. I'm an enterprise architect with 25 years experience. In these years, I've helped organizations improve their business performance, increase their revenue, improve their operational efficiency, and train and develop their people. Alonzo, if I was part of your team, I could help you meet your goals. Would you consider having a meeting with me so we could discuss this further?
Absolutely.
So you see the difference. In one, I wrote about all the stuff that I did that Alonzo doesn't care about at all. In the other, I position myself intelligently to Alonzo with what I can do for him. So that's the secret. Don't tell me what you've done. I see it every day. People go to LinkedIn, I lost my job, I have skills in this. And I say, yeah, so? Now, by comparison, tell me what you can do for me. Now, Peter, I've sold everything in this way in my entire life because it's the only way that I understand. Peter, let me give you an example. About 3 years ago when I started this company, Alonzo remembers because I invited him to this, we had this special 1-week boot camp. And Alonzo was part of my cloud architect program. By the way, Alonzo got a cloud architect job. He did great in his career, but I begged him to come back because I love Alonzo, as does the rest of my team. But that's neither here nor there. He and I are like twin brothers. Believe me, we're too similar. We drive Chris nuts. But you know, I saw all these people that were like, I lost my job, tell everybody, and nobody paid attention to them. You know what happened 5 minutes later? I see this thing that says, I'm leaving the Marine Corps in 1 month. I know what it means to work hard. I know what it means to fight for a goal, and I want to fight for you. If you'd like to hire a Marine that has battle experience that will battle and win for you, please talk to me. Now, Peter, I saw this post on LinkedIn. I sent the guy an instant message and said, because I knew he wanted a tech job. And I said, could you tell me what you're interested in? And he said, I'd really like this. And I said, here's the thing. You come join us. But that message that he wrote hit me so hard. We were small enough at the time. I didn't have any employees. I could just give him a course. 2 weeks later, he took what I had and he got his first intro level tech job. Now, I would have had him stick it out and get a bigger job, but he was happy. And here's the key. He went out there and said, what can I do for you? And I saw him and said, this guy is someone that needs training. This guy is someone we can help. And poof, he did great. So, Peter, show what you can do for others, not what you've done in your past.
From Diggleman. So, Mike, if you wanted to sell a solution and claim this solution can increase your sales by 20%, what source would you use to prove that?
I'd have to do the research and do it. I can't just quote anything. For example, let's say I was going to work with a hospital. Now, let's say the hospital had 1,000 nurses. And the average fully loaded nursing salary, which includes pay, benefits, etc., for nurses in the United States, let's say is $60 an hour, which is pretty close to it. I want you to think about this. So if a hospital has 1,000 nurses and they're paying $60 an hour fully loaded salary. Now, Dingelman, what if I told you that the average nurse, which is true statistically, spends 25% of their time looking for equipment? 25% of their time looking for IV pumps, looking for wheelchairs, looking for stuff. 25% of their time looking for equipment. Now, I can easily calculate that out. I can take 1,000, which is the number of people, times $60 an hour, times 40 hours, and I've got my nursing cost. Now, I'm probably going to have to add in 1 to 2 hours per nurse of overtime, which fully loaded cost is going to be about $85 to $90 an hour, but that's another story. We're going to keep that out of that. Some hospitals are dying of nurses, and they're paying agency nurses to come in $70 to $100 an hour to fill in the gaps because they don't have enough nurses. Not to meet a patient staffing requirement, because the nurses can't do their jobs. So now I could say, what is 25% of 1,000 nurses times $60 an hour times $40 a week? And I can calculate that. Now, what could I do as an architect to help those nurses find that equipment? Well, I could put RFID tags on wheelchairs and IV pumps, and I could take the 2 hours a day that's wasted per nurse, which is $120 per nurse, times 1,000 nurses. You can run the math there very simply. And I can say I can eliminate that. I can remove 1 hour and 45 minutes by using RFID tags to help the nurses find their equipment. Now I can demonstrate a documented cost savings. Now, of course, when you build a business case, you have to calculate the expected value of an opportunity versus which may or not be 100%, but that's how you do it. You learn the business. If I'm dealing with an airline and we're trying to use fuel price predictions, we're going to look at their fuel costs over time. What is it? What's the best? What's the peak? You got to analyze the business. So to be able to say this solution can increase your X by X, Y, Z percent, it might take me 4 months of analysis of the business. And that's why architects don't touch the technology. I've worked with clients where I spent 6 months just to obtain information, long before they even issued a request for proposal. for the solution for us to design it. 6 months just being there every single day, buying them sushi for lunch, taking them out for drinks, meeting with people, knocking on people. Hey, how you doing? It's Mike. I'm from Cisco. Could you tell me about the challenges in your job? It's part of the job. It's part of the life. It's exactly what it is. So you can easily claim it if you've done the math. If you haven't done the math, it's just lies. So we don't lie. We have to run an analysis. And the analysis has to be good. That's why we are architects. That's why people pay us. And that's why we are not tech obsessed like the engineers. Because if you've got to find the client's business vision, and that's where all architecture starts. Now you're talking to the C-suite, the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, the CTO. Where's your goal for the business? Then I now have to figure out how the business runs. How does the sales process occur? If I don't understand that thing, well, man, I can't improve it. So I got to map that process out, and I got to map the people that are involved in it too. How does that supply chain work? I don't know. Every company's supply chain is different. I got to analyze that organization's supply chain. Now the business has what's called the value chain, or how that business makes money. I promise you no two businesses are alike, so I've got to figure that out. And only when I do that with a consultative approach can I find the inefficiencies in the business for me to figure out which problems need to be solved. That's why this is an architect position versus an engineering position. That's why this is a high-paying position. It's finding that information out. You know, I've walked into clients and they'd say, Mike, is your technology going to help us? My first answer is, I don't know. It's too early for me to determine. The other thing that I used to tell people is they'd say, Mike, what's your opinion on this? I'm going to tell you right now, I am quite comfortable saying I am not qualified to have an opinion because I don't have access to all the information. I really am. And you know what? If you ask a physician about veterinary medicine, you know what they're going to tell you? I'm not qualified to have an opinion on this because I'm not a veterinarian. So that's the key. In order to get to the good stuff, you need that analysis. You need that groundwork. You need to be with the customer. You need to be asking questions. You need to be able to do so many things to be able to get to that. And that's why we're there. And that's why, you know, recently, and if you guys have questions, please ask them. But that's why relatively recently I adopted the TOGAF framework. I mean, let's face it, TOGAF doesn't teach architecture, but it does teach you the process to do it. Start here, 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 and here. And that's why I actually like TOGAF, because it's a process. And it makes the architects not forget to start with the business goals and not to say, oh, this serverless thing is kind of cool, which could be the best thing or the worst thing. We don't know. It's no different than a physician prescribing a medication. They don't start out and say, here, I got this great Pfizer drug for you. They don't. They look at the person's condition. They look at what other factors go on with the person's condition, what other conditions they have. They look at the drug. They look for allergies. They look if this drug will aggravate another metabolic process in the person. And then we make a prescription. We can't make the prescription without knowing all the facts. So I think you're jumping ahead 4 or 5 or 6 steps. Oh, I love what Ed put in the chat box. Bring that up. Because Ed already knows what it means to be an architect already.
The analogy, right, Mike? Okay. And from Ed, great analogy, Mike. In medicine, we refer to this as history taking, a vital skill needed to address a disease in its specific context. That's definitely relevant to our conversation earlier today.
And that's the key. In medicine, we have to take the history. We do a history, we do a physical, we do everything long before we get to a diagnosis. Now, Ed, you're here and you're going to understand this. I'm going to give you the secret to cloud architecture. The reason I talked about having the right leadership skills, the right sales skills, the right executive presence, the right emotional intelligence is as follows. Now, Ed, in medicine, there's 2 ways you can do it. I come from internal medicine. So internal medicine, emergency medicine, they're relatively similar in what we deal with for the most part. Other than internal medicine, we don't deal with the crises. But we deal with those scope of the problems. So a good architect does exactly what a good internist does. And here's what I mean by this. If Alonzo is my chief executive officer and I talk to Alonzo and he says, Mike, here are the business challenges we have. We are looking to take our systems to the cloud. We need them to be locked down. We're looking to be able to make better business decisions. And I say, okay, what is he talking about with this thing? And then he says, we need to reduce latency here. We need to do this. I need to optimize sales. No, right then and there, Ed, I put on my emergency I put on my internal medicine hat, and I do this with every architecture. Internal medicine, I do my history and a physical on a patient, right? I know you've done the same. So patient comes in, and I notice on that history and physical, at least in America, that the patient has hypertension, diabetes, and those are the two main, and they're morbidly obese. Now, Ed, in medicine, in internal medicine, I might say, even though I can write a prescription for any of these things, I might say for your hypertension, I'd like you to see the cardiologist. For your diabetes, I'd like you to see the endocrinologist. And for your nutrition, I want you to see a registered dietitian. Guess what, Ed? That's what we do in architecture too. The best architects focus exactly like an internist, in that they take the problem, they ask the right questions, they bring in all the consultants, and together you and the consultants design the solution, and then you become the primary owner of the solution, just like you would in a primary care environment. Ed, I hope you join our program. Ed, I want to work with you. I love getting doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and physician assistants, big architect jobs. But Ed, that's the scenario, and it's a vital skill. Now, Ed, you said you were from Cameroon. You have much better diagnostic skills than those of us that were trained with Western and English or American medicine. I know this because I did my rotations with a physician from Ghana, and he taught me how to diagnose without spending $3,000 to $5,000 of diagnostic tests on every single patient by looking at things, smelling at things, etc. So you're going to do really, really well, and I really do hope to work with you. And I welcome you to this career. It's the best career I've ever had. All less stress than where you come from, and a lot easier life, but we do the same job. It's just instead of prescribing antibiotics and antihypertensives, we prescribe technology. Same job. Let me get to the LinkedIn user next. When is the next class starting? Today. So LinkedIn user, when you ask when is the class starting, I want to make sure that you understand why we're different than somebody else. I detest boot camps. Why? Because they take your money, and at the end of the 16 weeks when it's over, they kick you out and you're stuck. When people join our program, they have a couple components of the program. They have the online stuff, which is self-paced, which means you start in order. And then we actually have the live classes. Now, we repeat these live classes in an order. So one day might be fundamentals in networking, and another day might be routing. Another day might be BGP. Another day might be virtual machines. Another day might be containers and container orchestration. Another day might be load balancers. And then the next is, how do you design an internet service provider network? And how do you design a bank's network? And how would you design a retailer's network based on different business scenarios? You stay in our program until the day you're hired. So the people that sign up today will be in our program until the day they're hired. And everybody gets every class no matter when they join, because we constantly repeat the classes. So that way, I've got 100% flexibility. I can say, you take our course and you stay in our course until the day you're hired. So the moment you sign up is when you start. Why else won't I wait? The average cloud architect earns over $800 a day. And if I were to cause you to wait 2 months to start our program for the next batch, and the average architect earns over $16,000 a month, you lost $32,000 by waiting. So here's my thing. I want to get you in as fast as possible. I want to train you the best of our abilities. I want you to study a lot, and I want you to get a great job and not think about training and think about bettering yourself for the rest of your life. That's why we do things, and that's why we do what we do.
From Miss Laman Jamin, how should cloud architects be thinking about quantum computing and its impact on the change of how architect solutions and digital transformation is achieved in the near future?
Miss Laman Jamin, and I know you, and you were really terrific. Now you got a computer that's faster than the other computers. What does that mean? You need less of them. So seriously, it's not going to change anything. Miss Laman Jamin, I know you. You are so smart. You actually get in your own way. You are incredible, by the way. I just need you to believe it in yourself. Here's the thing. Whether we're dealing with a small CPU or a big CPU or a bigger CPU, it's the same. If we're dealing with a GPU from 20 years ago versus a GPU today, it's the same. If we're dealing with a frame relay virtual connection in 1993, and we're dealing with an AWS, private link connection, it's pretty much the same technology from almost 30 years ago. We're dealing with, what is the cloud? It's a virtualized network in a data center. Do you know who invented that? IBM invented the mainframe, which could be virtualized in 1970. Now, the EC2 instance virtual machine, VMware invented that in 1999. So Ms. Lamajama, I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to think about it. Today, you have a Honda Accord with a 6-cylinder engine in it. Tomorrow, you get your cloud architect job and you buy a Mercedes. How does that Mercedes change versus the Honda? Do both take you to the same place? Do they both use gas for fuel? Do they both have spark plugs in them? Do they both have 4 wheels on them? Do they both have a steering wheel and brakes? The answer is yes. So, Ms. Lamajama, focus less about what the new is and focus more about what it is. It's compute. It's just compute. You know what, Ms. Lamajama is making a big comeback? The mainframe. Mainframe sales are going up. And why are they going up? Because people went to the cloud. It was too expensive. One of the things the cloud was scalability, flexibility, and mainframes do that. So companies are buying their own mainframes and sticking them in the data center. AWS is trying to tell everybody to get off the mainframe, and people are buying mainframes like crazy. So the key is less about the tech, more about what you're going to use the tech. So compute, compute, compute. Don't worry about it so much. And the key, honestly, for some people is to just cut the noise out. Every day you're going to see a press release of new technology. But, you know, Ms. Lamajama, if you can do this, I'd actually like you to go to the Internet Engineering Task Force page, ietf.org. And I'd like you to look up RFC 1925. It was written by the Society of Old Farts. I didn't make it up, they did. And here's what and in this thing, you know, let me see if I can pull it up for you. I would love to read it to you because I think this will help you, and I think it will actually help most people build a better career. And I know you, Ms. Lamajama, and you're exceptional. I hope to see you in class tonight. So RFC 1925. Let me see if I can pull it up. You're going to like it. Okay, so here we go. I found them. So RFCs, in case for anybody that doesn't know, are the actual specifications for Internet Protocol. And these are the fundamental truths written in RFC 25. I love this one. Truth 1, it has to work. Okay, right? So we got our solutions have to work. Truth 2, no matter how you push and no matter what the priority, you can't increase the speed of light. And why do we talk about this? Because people are trying to reduce latency beyond a certain point. And why will the cloud always perform much less than the data center? You got the speed of light and the latency over the cable. Third truth, gets a little comical here. With sufficient thrust, pigs fly just fine. However, it's not necessarily a good idea. It is hard to be sure where they are going to land, and it could be dangerous sitting under them as they're flying overhead. Next truth, some things in life can never be fully appreciated nor understood unless experienced firsthand. Some things in networking can never be fully understood by someone who neither builds commercial networking equipment nor runs an operational. Another truth in here, it is easier to move a problem around. For example, by moving the problem to a different part of the overall system or network. We see this in tech all the time. You got a bottleneck here, swap some new technology, and you got a bottleneck and a problem there. And the next one, which is true of all architectures, it's always something. Good, fast, and cheap. You can pick any two that you like, but you can't have all three. You can be better and faster, but being better, faster, and cheaper at the same time, it's just not going to work. The next truth, which is true, I love this, Ms. Lamajama, it is more complicated than you think. Next one I love, for all resources, whatever it is, you need more. Believe me, whatever you think you're going to need more. Issue 10, super critical. One size never fits all, which is why you can't reverse engineer somebody else's solution. Which is why if you look at Netflix's architecture, it won't work for somebody else because it's a different business with a different goal. Next one, Ms. Lamajama, I'm thinking of you all over here. Every old idea will be proposed again with a different name and a different presentation, regardless of whether it works. So quantum computers 15 years ago, quantum computers today. Last one here is in protocol design, perfection has been reached not when there is nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away, which basically means when you've got the perfect architecture, there's no fat, there's no waste. So Ms. Lamajama, try to remember that. It's just a new piece of technology. It's just a new toy.
Looks like we lost Mike again. So hopefully he will be back in. Shortly, perhaps it might have been Cindy. But if there are any other questions, there he is again.
Well, here's the thing. I clicked off of the Internet Engineering Task Force webpage, and poof, it's here. And if you guys want to share that link, the IETF.org, RFC 1925, feel free. It's, I think, fun for everybody to read. But you know, it's there's a lot of truth in that.
Back to Alan. Mike, when he asked, when asked, I say my desire is to be a security architect. To transition into an enterprise CIO solely focuses on the business through digital transformation. Their typical response is, I don't touch tech. If you want to learn security, I'll refer you to blank. Should I leave out that part about security architecture or improve my pitch?
Well, there's a couple things. Alan, if somebody asks me about my future, I'm not going to say I want to do this, and be out of here. Why? Because I'm going to bring in a new architect. I want them to stick with me for 3 to 5 years before they do anything. So I would say, I want to be an architect. I want to help you improve your business performance, is something you might say. I might even say, I love the architecture career. I want to help my clients achieve maximum success with my system designs. I see myself now as a solution architect, a security architect, or whatever you like. 5 years from now, I see myself as a principal architect, and I want to maximize my architecture career and maximize the results I can get from my client. Don't go to this other stuff. So here's why. You know, if I'm going to hire somebody and I'm going to invest in them, I don't want to think they're quitting and getting a new job a couple years from now. I don't want that. So I would improve your pitch. I would say, my desire is to be your cloud security architect or my security architect. And yes, the response is going to be, you don't touch the tech. Of course, they don't want you to touch the tech. They want you to be a business consultant. So the key is, if you're going to say, I want to be a security architect, make sure you explain what that is. I want to be a security architect in terms of designing solutions to improve the security and protect the assets of the business. Remember, when you're designing security architecture, you're not doing digital transformation anymore. You're designing security. Generic architects or enterprise architects focus on the business. Security architects focus on designing a security strategy that doesn't impede or get in the way of the business. So you kind of have to feed that out. But no, I wouldn't use that. Because if you say, I want to do this, and then later this, and this, you know, it's kind of icky. So think of it this way. If I actually were to have interviewed Alonzo, instead of calling him and saying, please work for me, you're awesome. But if I had interviewed Alonzo and Alonzo said to me, well, Mike, I just want to hang out with you for a year and be an architect. I'm going to learn lots about leadership and sales and presence from you. And then I'm out of here. I want to do something else. I wouldn't have brought Alonzo on. I mean, unless I needed a temporary worker for a year. I said, Alonzo, do you want to help me educate the next generation of technology professionals? He said, yeah. I said, you want to see people that had nothing, you know, develop $200,000 and $300,000 jobs? And he said, yeah. I said, do you like celebrating it every time someone like someone like Ivan Tamba that lifted heavy stones for $2 a day all day, watch him get his first big paying job? And he said, yeah. So that's what we talked about. And I would do the same thing. He asked me what I wanted to be, and I gave him a similar response. So don't talk about what your new jobs are. That's a loaded question. I remember I interviewed somebody at Cisco, and they interviewed for a sales engineer role. And, you know, we had interviewed about 150 people already. We asked them basic questions. All 150 people knew nothing. And finally, we interviewed someone that almost knew enough. And it was like, wow, we could train this guy. In 6 months, he'll be solid. And right now, he's good enough. And we asked him, what do you want to do? And he says, well, I don't really want to be a systems engineer. I just want to get hired at Cisco. So I'm going to take this job. And as soon as I can leave, I'm going to go somewhere else in Cisco. And it was like, goodbye. Now, the rest of the team laughed at the guy. And I was like, you know, thank you so much. It was nice to meet you. But that's the key. So show that you want to be there, that it's part of it, that it's important to you, the architecture world. And then when you want to move on from architecture, new resume, new pitch, you'll be. But I'll tell you, Alan, you'll get there. You'll get there.
From back to Eugene, Mike, do you recommend one pursue the TOGAF certification? Is that taught in your program?
So, Eugene, Do I recommend the TOGAF certification? Sort of. Do I teach the TOGAF certification in our program? Absolutely yes. So here's what I want you to understand, Eugene. No certification teaches you how to do the job. No certification on its own is going to get you hired. But, and here's the big but, the certifications tell a story of you. And while we're at it, the certifications will get you an interview. So, yes, I recommend it. But I recommend you learn the skills first. And here's why. I've got people like Delroy Batt that got hired with 0 cloud certifications as a cloud security architect. I think Robert Welch, who we trained, had a cloud practitioner before he got his first cloud security architect job. Jeffrey West had a cloud practitioner. So basically, the cloud practitioner is a weekend worth of nothing. And they were still able to get hired. So, you know, it's not on certification now, but Eugene, the certification is going to help you get that interview. So I like 2 to 3 perfect certifications, and the TOGAF is one of them. And what it does is, for example, it shows employers you might know something about architecture. It shows employers you're not going to be talking about coding or configuring if you understand what TOGAF is. And it does paint a picture. So you get that TOGAF, you got that interview, and then we train you the skills that are going to get you hired. And we train you the skills to get hired and the certifications. So here's what TOGAF really is, to put it in context. It's a framework that guides you on how to do the same things each time. And it's there because, you know, without it, some people are going to go straight to the tech and not focus on the vision of the business and not learn the business architecture. So for that, I absolutely love TOGAF. Now, here's when TOGAF really became interesting to me. So I got to practice with my wife a few years ago. Now, my wife practices internal medicine, and she went off into cardiology for a while. So that's her world, internal medicine, cardiology. She's great at it. Now, I am pretty good with musculoskeletal medicine and anti-aging medicine, even though I come from an internal medicine background. So people come to me for musculoskeletal injuries that don't require surgery. So here's the thing. My wife, when she sees a patient, we work together. She starts at the head. She looks in the eyes, the ears, the nose, the throat. Then she goes to the neck. Then she listens to the lungs. Then she listens to the heart. She palpates the belly and works her way down. I deal with predominantly orthopedic stuff. So I start with somebody's big toe, otherwise known as their hallux. Then I look at the foot. Then I look at the ankle. Then I look at the knee. Then I look at the hip. Then I look at the back and the shoulders long before I get anywhere else, because I'm dealing with predominantly musculoskeletal medicine. Now, theoretically, my wife and I will come to the identical diagnosis and won't miss anything. But my wife's got a method that she's developed over years to precision and the same every time. And mine is, we go the opposite direction. And when people do things the same way each time, they get much more predictable results than when people do things differently and make it up their own way. So TOGAF is that standard. And yes, I love it. And is Go Cloud Careers a TOGAF member? Yes, we're a member of the open group along with companies like Amazon and IBM. I think there's 236 of us. Deloitte, Accenture, all those big companies, they're all TOGAF companies, and we are one too. So yes, we teach the TOGAF, but we teach you how to be an architect. And the TOGAF will just make you a better architect. It won't teach you how to be an architect. I never want to confuse certifications with skills. They're just not the same. So we'll give you the right skills and the right certification, and we'll help you get to your goals. So let's talk about these last few things. Tomorrow, completely free and live webinar on how to get your first cloud architect job. Please join us. It's completely free. We'll tell you what you need to learn. You have the opportunity to talk live with Alonzo and me. We have fun on these webinars. We can mini interview. We can assess your skills. We can answer your question. And we can do it either in the chat box or, my preference, a face-to-face live conversation. It's the way I choose to live. So join us. It's completely free. And while we're at it, download the completely free guide on how to get your first cloud architect job. You can read it today and attend the webinar tomorrow and be fully prepared and be even better at it. And for this, I want to make sure. And, I love what Lopez just put in there. Skills pay the bills. That's true. Here's the thing. My friend Alonzo.
Very true.
He says you can't take your certification to the bank and ask for a mortgage or get money out of the bank for it. but you can show them that offer letter that you got from the skills and buy a house, buy a car, do whatever you need with it. So skills. And Lopez, it says you said somewhere you joined us. I'm thrilled that you're here. Let us know what we can do to help you because I can't wait until you're hired. I absolutely love that. So join us tomorrow on the Completely Free webinar. For my students, that a few of you are here, if you're in the interview program, I'm going to have fun with you guys tonight. Otherwise, tomorrow, we're back. We're consulting to this organization, and I'll be there to help you guys through the process. Anything left for you to say, Alonzo, before we go?
No, Mike, there's always been a great opportunity for everyone to get their questions answered. I hope everyone who had the curiosity to know that they can do this job as a cloud architect got the questions answered that they need. Please continue to move on. Continue to join us on a weekly basis to get your questions answered. It doesn't matter whatever it is about cloud architecture, we're here to help. These are our office hours that we're dedicating to getting those questions answered. So continue to join us. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again real soon.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good one, everyone.